The research vessel Stellar Observer hung silently in Earth's orbit, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it invisible to human detection technology. The alien research team aboard had spent the last 3 months studying this peculiar species that had recently achieved space flight capability. Head researcher Tom, who had chosen this simple human name for easier record-keeping, stood before the ship's council, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he prepared to present his latest findings. The chamber was filled with fellow scientists, all belonging to the Unified Galactic Research Coalition. Distinguished colleagues, Tom began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standardized galactic common, our observations of human mating habits have revealed something unprecedented in all our studies of sentient species. The assembled researchers leaned forward in their hover seats, their various sensory organs focused intently on the holographic display. Unlike every other known species in the galaxy, humans engage in mating behavior primarily for pleasure rather than reproduction, Tom continued, bringing up several data points. They have completely separated the act of reproduction from the biological drive to mate. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Senior researcher Pat, another simplified name, raised a appendage. Impossible. All sentient species we've encountered follow the basic evolutionary principle of efficient reproduction. Mating solely for pleasure would be a waste of energy? Tom finished. That's what we thought too. But humans have turned this seemingly inefficient behavior into a cornerstone of their culture, art, and social structures. The holographic display showed various human cultural artifacts, romance novels, dating apps, wedding ceremonies, and entertainment media centered around the concept of pleasure-based pair bonding. What's even more fascinating, Tom continued, is that this behavior seems to have accelerated their emotional and social evolution. The complex web of relationships, the depth of their pair bonding, and the sophisticated social structures they've built around it, it's unlike anything we've seen. The data streams showed psychological profiles, brain scans, and social network analyses. The patterns were undeniable. But surely this makes them vulnerable? Asked Pat. All this energy spent on pleasure-seeking rather than efficient reproduction. Tom's upper eyes curved in what his species considered a smile. That's the most interesting part. This seemingly inefficient system has actually made them more resilient. Their emotional connections have led to stronger family units, more complex social support systems, and unprecedented levels of cooperative behavior. The chamber erupted in excited chittering and clicking as researchers began debating the implications. Tom waited for the noise to settle before delivering his final point. I propose that we've been wrong about the evolutionary advantage of purely reproductive mating. Humans have shown us that pleasure-driven pair bonding might be a key step in advanced social evolution, one that we, in our quest for biological efficiency, completely missed. As the council chamber buzzed with excited discussion, Tom knew this was just the beginning. Their observations of human mating habits would revolutionize the galaxy's understanding of social evolution, and perhaps force them to reconsider what they thought they knew about efficient species development. The implications were staggering. And they had only scratched the surface of understanding humanity's unique approach to love, pleasure, and pair bonding. 2 weeks after his initial presentation, head researcher Tom found himself in an uncomfortable position. The Galactic Council had demanded more detailed research, but their standard observation protocols were proving inadequate for understanding the full scope of human relationships. We need to establish closer contact, Tom announced to his research team during their daily briefing aboard the Stellar Observer. Remote observation isn't enough anymore. Senior researcher Pat's skin shifted to a worried purple hue. Are you suggesting we break the non-interference protocols? Not break, Tom corrected, his 4 eyes focusing on different data streams simultaneously. Modify. The humans are close to discovering interstellar travel anyway. We've detected their quantum experiments. The research team gathered around the holographic display showing a small Earth town they'd been monitoring. It was chosen for its manageable size and diverse population, perfect for their study. I've received special permission from the council, Tom continued. We're authorized to establish a small research base on the surface. Disguised, of course, using our biomodification technology. The announcement caused quite a stir. Biomodification was rarely approved for field research, but the potential insights into pleasure-driven evolution were too valuable to ignore. A week later, Tom stood in front of a mirror in the ship's preparation chamber, examining his newly modified form. The bioengineers had done an excellent job creating a convincing human appearance. His 4 eyes had been merged into 2, his exoskeleton transformed into soft skin, and his communication appendages reshaped into what humans called ears and a mouth. This is rather uncomfortable, Pat commented, also examining their new human form. How do they manage with only 2 eyes and no sensory tentacles? That's exactly what we're here to understand, Tom replied, practicing human facial expressions. Their limitations have led to fascinating adaptations. The research team established themselves in the small town, setting up what humans would recognize as a scientific consulting firm. Their cover story was simple: a group of researchers studying local social dynamics for a university project. What they discovered in their first week of direct observation exceeded their wildest expectations. They have entire industries dedicated to finding mates for pleasure. Pat exclaimed during their first covert report. These dating services and romance consultants, they've turned mate-seeking into both an art and a science. Tom was more interested in the emotional aspects they were observing. The humans invest enormous resources in what they call romance. They create elaborate courtship rituals, exchange gifts, and engage in complex social behaviors just to attract potential mates. The team was particularly fascinated by a local couple they observed. The 2 humans had been dating for several months, showing no immediate interest in reproduction, yet investing significant time and resources in simply enjoying each other's company. It defies everything we thought we knew about efficient species development, Tom noted in his personal research log. They've created a social system where pleasure and emotional connection drive their evolution, not just reproductive success. But their most stunning discovery came from analyzing human brain chemistry during various stages of their mating rituals. The pleasure centers in their brains, Tom explained to his team, they're not just activated during mating. They show similar patterns during simple activities like holding hands, sharing meals, or even just talking with their chosen partners. They've evolved to find joy in the entire process of pair bonding. As Tom compiled their findings for the next report to the Galactic Council, he couldn't help but wonder if his own species had taken the wrong evolutionary path. Had their focus on efficiency and pure reproduction caused them to miss out on something fundamental about social evolution? The answers would come soon enough, but first, they had much more to learn about humanity's unique approach to love and pleasure. 1 month into their field research, the alien team encountered something that shook their fundamental understanding of social structures. They discovered what humans called a wedding. Tom and Pat sat in their observation post, disguised as guests at the local celebration. Their biomodified forms allowed them to blend in perfectly, though they still struggled with some human customs like small talk and dancing. "This is extraordinary," Tom whispered to Pat as they watched the ceremony unfold. They've created an entire social ritual around pair bonding, complete with witnesses, legal documentation, and cultural significance. The bride and groom stood before their gathered friends and family, exchanging what humans called vows. The raw emotion in the room was unlike anything the alien researchers had ever encountered in their centuries of studying different species. "Their hormone levels are off the charts," Pat noted, discreetly checking their hidden scanner. "But it's not just reproductive hormones. Their brains are flooding with oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. They're literally getting high on emotional connection." Tom was fascinated by the guests' reactions. "Look at how the witnesses are responding. They're experiencing empathetic pleasure responses. This isn't just about the mating pair, it's strengthening the entire social group's bonds. Back at their research base that evening, the team compiled their observations. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing data from hundreds of human social interactions they'd observed over the past month. "We've been approaching this all wrong," Tom announced to his team. "We thought humans had simply separated pleasure from reproduction, but it's much more profound than that." He pulled up a complex neural map showing the interconnected pathways of human emotional responses. They've evolved to derive pleasure from the entire spectrum of social bonding. The physical act of mating is just one small part of a much larger pleasure-reward system. The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't just developed pleasure-driven mating habits, they'd created an entire social structure based on the pursuit of emotional satisfaction. But here's what's truly remarkable, Tom continued, highlighting specific data points. This system actually makes them more successful as a species, not less. Their pleasure-driven approach to pair bonding leads to stronger family units, more stable child-rearing environments, enhanced social cooperation, improved mental health, greater species resilience. Pat, who had been analyzing the wedding data, added another observation. They even have different types of love. Romantic love, familial love, platonic love, each with its own distinct neurochemical signature but all part of the same pleasure-reward system. The team's youngest researcher, who had taken the human name Bob, raised an important question. Could this be why our own species has stagnated? We eliminated pleasure from our mating processes in pursuit of efficiency, but what if pleasure itself is evolutionary efficient? A thoughtful silence fell over the room. Their own species had indeed reached a point of evolutionary stasis. Despite their technological advancement, their social structures hadn't evolved in thousands of years. Tom made a decision. We need to expand our research. These human pleasure bonding mechanisms might be the key to understanding social evolution across the galaxy. But as they planned their expanded study, none of them noticed the small anomaly in their cloaking system. Their presence in the town hadn't gone completely unnoticed, and a curious human had started to piece together the clues. At that very moment, a local journalist named Jim was sitting in his home office, staring at a wall covered in newspaper clippings and photographs. Pictures of the mysterious new research firm were connected with red strings to reports of unusual energy readings and strange technological glitches around town. Jim smiled as he added another photograph to his collection. He didn't know exactly what he was onto, but he knew one thing for certain: there was more to these new researchers than met the eye. Jim sat in his car outside the mysterious research firm's office, sipping his third coffee of the evening. 2 months of investigation had led him to some impossible conclusions, yet the evidence was becoming harder to ignore. Through his camera's telephoto lens, he watched Tom and his colleagues leaving the building. There was something off about their movements, too precise, too calculated. Like actors who had studied human behavior but couldn't quite nail the performance. "Got you," Jim whispered as he snapped another photo. His camera caught a brief moment when Tom's human disguise flickered, revealing a shimmer of something distinctly non-human underneath. Meanwhile, inside their base, the alien research team was facing their own crisis. "Our biological modifications are becoming unstable," Pat reported, their human form temporarily distorting to reveal glimpses of their natural state. "We didn't account for the long-term effects of maintaining these forms while experiencing human emotions." Tom examined the data streams with growing concern. Their immersion in human society had exposed them to unprecedented levels of emotional stimulation, and it was affecting their biomodification systems in unexpected ways. "It's not just the disguises," Bob added, pulling up more diagnostic data. "Our brain chemistry is changing. We're developing new neural pathways similar to human pleasure centers." The implications were both fascinating and terrifying. By studying human pleasure-driven social bonds, they were beginning to develop similar capabilities themselves. Their supposedly objective research was changing them in fundamental ways. Tom was about to respond when their security system pinged. "We're being watched," he announced, pulling up the exterior cameras. The feed showed Jim in his car, his camera aimed at their building. "He has evidence," Pat said, analyzing the data. "Multiple photographs of our disguise malfunctions. And he's been tracking our energy signatures. The council will shut down our research if this gets out," Bob worried. "We'll lose everything we've learned about human pair bonding and pleasure-driven evolution." Tom surprised them all by smiling, a very human gesture that felt increasingly natural to him. "Maybe this is exactly what we need. A chance to test our theories about human emotional connections." "What do you mean?" Pat asked, their form flickering between human and alien as their anxiety peaked. "Instead of hiding from this human, we invite him in," Tom explained. "We show him the truth and appeal to something humans value deeply, curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge." The team was shocked. "That would violate every protocol we have," Pat protested. "Our protocols were wrong," Tom stated firmly. "Everything we've learned about humans suggests they're ready for contact. Their pleasure-driven social evolution has given them emotional tools we never considered important. They understand empathy, curiosity, and wonder in ways our efficiency-focused society has forgotten." As if to prove Tom's point, their sensors showed Jim getting out of his car, walking boldly toward their front door. He wasn't running to expose them or calling authorities. He was seeking understanding. "Look at his neural readings," Bob noted with amazement. "No fear, just intense curiosity and excitement. Even knowing we might be aliens, his first instinct is to learn more." Tom made his decision. "We're going to open that door. We're going to show him who we really are. And we're going to learn if our research about human emotional capacity is correct." As Jim's finger moved toward the doorbell, the alien team prepared for first official contact. But none of them could have predicted how this interaction would change not just their research, but the future of both their species. In his final moment of complete humanoid appearance, Tom reached for the door handle, ready to test everything they'd learned about human emotional intelligence and adaptability. The door opened, and two worlds collided. Jim stood face to face with Tom, watching in amazement as the human disguise slowly melted away, revealing the alien form underneath. Four eyes blinked at him in sequence, while iridescent skin shifted colors in response to the emotional moment. "Well," Jim said, surprising himself with his calm, "I guess my editor owes me an apology for calling me crazy." Tom's translator converted his clicks and whistles into English. "You're not afraid?" "Terrified," Jim admitted with a smile. "But mostly fascinated. I'm guessing you're not really a scientific consulting firm?" Inside the research base, Jim sat surrounded by holographic displays showing the team's research into human relationships and pleasure-driven social bonds. His journalist's notebook remained untouched in his pocket. This moment felt too important for simple note-taking. "So you've been studying how humans fall in love?" Jim asked, trying to process the magnitude of what he was seeing. "Not just love," Pat explained, their form now fully returned to its natural state. "We've been studying how your species has evolved to use pleasure and emotional connection as driving forces for social development." Jim looked at the complex neural maps and relationship diagrams covering the walls. "And what have you learned?" Tom shared a look with his team before responding. "We've learned that we might have been wrong about everything. Our species pursued efficiency in reproduction and social organization. We eliminated pleasure as an unnecessary distraction. But looking at human society, you're wondering if you made a mistake?" Jim finished the thought. "Exactly," Bob chimed in. "Your species has achieved something remarkable. You've turned pleasure and emotional connection into evolutionary advantages. Your art, your music, your literature, they all revolve around these connections. Jim thought about this for a moment. But surely your species must have some form of pleasure? Some kind of emotional bonds? The alien researchers grew quiet. Finally, Tom spoke. We did, once. But we bred it out, thinking it made us weak. Now, after studying humans, we're experiencing something unexpected. Our prolonged exposure to human society is reawakening dormant neural pathways. You're learning to feel again, Jim realized. Yes, Tom confirmed. And it's changing everything we thought we knew about species development. Jim leaned back in his chair, journalist instincts kicking in. So what happens now? Are you going to report this to your superiors? That's where we need your help, Tom said. We've broken protocol by revealing ourselves. But we believe it's time for our species to learn from humanity. Your pleasure-driven approach to life, love, and social bonds might be exactly what our civilization needs. And what about my story? Jim asked. The one I've been investigating for months? Tom's 4 eyes curved in what Jim now recognized as a smile. We're offering you an even better story. Not just about aliens studying human love, but about how humanity's unique approach to pleasure and emotional connection might help save an ancient civilization from its own emotional decay. Jim felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about exposing the truth, it was about bridging gaps between civilizations. About teaching an advanced alien species the value of something humans had known all along, that pleasure, love, and emotional connections weren't evolutionary weaknesses, but sources of incredible strength. I have one condition, Jim said finally. I want to help document your research. Not just about how humans love, but about how your species rediscovers its capacity for emotion. The alien team looked at each other, their skin colors shifting in patterns Jim couldn't yet understand. Finally, Tom extended a hand, a very human gesture he'd learned during their time on Earth. We would be honored, Tom said. After all, who better to help us understand pleasure and emotional connection than a species that has mastered it? 3 days after Jim's discovery, the research team received an urgent transmission from the Galactic Council. Their unauthorized contact with a human had not gone unnoticed. The holographic form of the Council Elder materialized in the center of their research base, its crystalline structure pulsing with disapproval. Jim, who was present for the transmission, watched in awe as the alien language filled the room with musical tones. Head researcher Tom, the Elder's voice resonated through the translator, you have violated our most sacred protocols. Explain yourself. Tom stood firmly, his 4 eyes steady. Honored Elder, our research has led us to an unprecedented discovery. Humanity's pleasure-driven social evolution isn't just fascinating, it's vital to understanding our own species' future. The Elder's crystalline form shifted colors. You risk contaminating both species with this contact. Our evolution abandoned pleasure for efficiency millennia ago. And that's exactly why we're stagnating, Tom argued, pulling up their research data. Look at these neural patterns. Humans haven't just maintained their capacity for pleasure and emotional connection, they've evolved it into a sophisticated social framework that enhances their species' resilience. Jim stepped forward, unable to contain himself. If I may speak? The Elder's form turned toward him, surprised by the human's boldness. Your species achieved incredible technological advancement, Jim said, but at what cost? You've engineered out the very things that make life worth living: joy, love, pleasure, emotional connection. Pat and Bob quickly added their own findings, showing how their exposure to human society had begun reactivating dormant pleasure centers in their own brains. Their neural patterns were showing signs of change, becoming more complex, more adaptable. This is precisely why we have protocols, the Elder countered. These emotions, these pleasures, they're unpredictable. Dangerous. No, Tom said firmly. What's dangerous is denying them. Look at our civilization, Elder. We've reached a plateau. Our efficiency-driven evolution has led us to a dead end. But humans, they're constantly evolving, driven by something we abandoned. The Elder's form flickered as it processed the data. You're suggesting we should learn from them? A younger species? Age doesn't always equal wisdom, Jim interjected. Sometimes the young have something to teach the old. The research team shared their most compelling evidence, videos of human celebrations, data on social bonding, studies of their art and culture. They showed how pleasure and emotional connection had driven human innovation, creativity, and resilience. And there's more, Tom added, revealing their latest discovery. Our prolonged study of humans has begun affecting our own species. We're developing new neural pathways, rediscovering emotional capacities we thought were lost forever. The Elder was silent for a long moment, its crystalline form shifting through various colors as it processed this information. Finally, it spoke. This is unprecedented, the Elder admitted. The implications for our species could be revolutionary, Tom finished. We're not just studying human mating habits anymore. We're discovering a path to our own species' renewal. Jim watched the exchange with growing hope. The fate of not just this research project, but potentially an entire civilization's emotional awakening, hung in the balance. The Elder's form pulsed one final time. I must consult with the full council. But know this, if what you've discovered is true, if human pleasure-driven evolution could truly help our species break its stagnation, then perhaps it's time for our civilizations to meet properly. As the hologram faded, the research team and Jim shared looks of cautious optimism. They had opened a door that couldn't be closed, a door that might lead to the biggest cultural exchange in galactic history. Well, Jim said with a smile, I guess my story just got even bigger. 1 month after the council transmission, the small town's main square was cordoned off for what the local newspaper called a special scientific demonstration. In reality, it was about to become the site of humanity's first official contact with alien life. Jim stood beside Tom and the research team, watching as 3 massive ships descended through the clouds, their cloaking systems deliberately deactivated to allow humans to witness their arrival. The gathered crowd gasped in collective awe. Are you ready for this? Jim asked, his reporter's notebook ready to document this historic moment. More importantly, are your people ready? Tom replied, his form now openly alien, no longer hidden behind human disguise. The crowd's reaction surprised even the council members who emerged from their ships. Instead of fear, the humans showed overwhelming curiosity and excitement. Children pointed at the aliens' colorful, shifting skin. Adults stepped forward with hands extended in greeting. The council elder's crystalline form glowed with unexpected warmth as it addressed the gathered humans. We came to study you, the translator broadcasted to the crowd. Instead, we find ourselves learning from you. Jim watched as human scientists, artists, and ordinary citizens began interacting with the alien delegation. The aliens' neural scanners were registering unprecedented levels of positive emotional response, both from the humans and, surprisingly, from themselves. Look at their readings, Pat exclaimed, monitoring the data. The council members are experiencing pleasure responses just from these simple interactions. Neural pathways that have been dormant in our species for generations are reactivating. Bob, who had been analyzing the long-term data, added another observation. It's not just pleasure. They're experiencing curiosity, wonder, excitement, emotions our species had engineered away in pursuit of efficiency. The elder approached Tom's research team. Your findings were correct. We had forgotten something fundamental about evolution. Efficiency without joy, reproduction without pleasure, existence without emotion, we created a dead end for our species. A young human child ran up to the elder, offering a flower. The elder's crystalline form shifted through a rainbow of colors as it carefully accepted the gift. The pleasure centers in its ancient brain lit up with long-forgotten sensations. "This is just the beginning," Tom said, watching the interaction. "Our species needs to relearn what humans never forgot, that pleasure, emotion, and connection aren't evolutionary weaknesses. They're the keys to continuous growth and adaptation." Jim finished typing the last notes for his article, which would soon become the most significant piece of journalism in human history. "So what happens now?" "Now," Tom replied, "we begin a true cultural exchange. Humans will teach us about love, pleasure, and emotional connection. In return, we'll share our technology and knowledge of the galaxy." The elder nodded in agreement. "Our civilizations will grow together. Your pleasure-driven evolution and our technological advancement, combined, they could lead both our species to new heights." As the sun set on that historic day, humans and aliens mingled in the town square. Music played, food was shared, and laughter, both human and alien, filled the air. The alien researchers who had started this journey by studying human mating habits had discovered something far more profound: the universal importance of joy, pleasure, and emotional connection. Jim looked at his alien friends, then at the celebrating crowd, and finally at his completed article on his tablet. The headline read, "First Contact: How Human Love Changed an Alien Civilization." "You know," he said to Tom, "when I first started investigating your research firm, I never imagined it would end like this." Tom's 4 eyes curved in what was now a genuine smile, not just a studied imitation. "That's the beauty of pleasure-driven evolution, Jim. It leads to unexpected places. And thanks to humans, our species is finally ready to embrace the unexpected again." As night fell, the stars seemed to shine brighter over the small town that had become the birthplace of a new era in galactic history. Two civilizations, once separated by their approach to pleasure and emotion, had found common ground in the most fundamental of all evolutionary forces: the capacity to feel, to love, and to grow.